All right. Thank you so much for staying with us. We apologize for that slight technical hitch. We are back now. So let's continue this discussion. Kazutu, we are talking about this amendment to the kicker bill, and you're giving your comments in terms of what the legislators are pushing for.
Okay. Yeah, so what I was saying is that first we need to commend the legislators for actually doing the work they are paid for, which is legislation. And if we could get more legislators to push through legislation that actually affects the common man and supports the common man, then Parliament starts moving in the right direction. And when you elect or re-elect your MP, their performance should be based on what legislations have they pushed or what bills did they support, because that shows what they stand for. It's not the 1 kilometer of road they build before elections that should determine the performance of a member of Parliament. It's actually legislation, and which bills they sponsored, supported, refused against. Then you know whether they stand for you as the people that voted for that member of Parliament, or they went there for their own enriching. The telecom kicker bill is, I think it's due. Safaricom has grown with a free hand without being over-regulated. And regulations do come in at some point. And I think the time for such regulation has come for Safaricom. Because if regulation come too early, then they do stifle innovation. But if regulations then do not come at all, you end up with the 2008 credit crisis that happened in the US. That was a market of collateralized debt that grew without much regulation, and regulation came too late. There is the Competition Act in Parliament, and I feel when legislators are now coming with another bill, that is a verdict that the Competition Authority has failed. I would have expected this to be coming from the Competition Authority, to declare one Safaricom dominant, and to bring out these antitrust behaviors of Safaricom in terms of the agent network. For a very long time, a Safaricom agent could not do anything else. They could only do Safaricom. That is what we call a monopolistic anti-competition tendency. Because then, any other person who wants to enter into the market has to find their own agent. But why can't an agent do all M-Pesa, Airtel Money, and all those other things? It's better revenue for that person and better access for competitive rates from other players to everyone. So I think that's a real failure on the Competition Authority, that they are not bringing up these things that now the legislators have to bring it in a bill, when there's already people who are being paid at the Competition Authority to do this exact same job. So I think as Parliament, they have the authority to summon the Competition Authority and say, we now have a bill in front of us that is seemingly doing the job that you guys are supposed to have done, and we've been paying you to do this. The taxpayer has been paying you to exactly do the same job. Splitting Safaricom voice data from M-Pesa is nothing new under the sun. It has been done globally in many places, and I think it is also an advantage for Safaricom at this point, because as a country, as Kenyans, we need to be embarrassed with ourselves. That for the last 15, 16 years, the only innovation that we are talking about is M-Pesa. You talk about Kenya, say, we have M-Pesa. And we've been talking about the same innovation for the last 16 years. Honestly, that is actually a lack of innovation. Where Safaricom has had one big innovation for the last 16 years. And M-Pesa revenue is getting to a point where it's plateauing. If you look at the growth of M-Pesa revenue on Safaricom books and the rate of growth, 3 years ago, 4 years ago, it was around 27, 28%. It has dropped down to around 21, 19. Last year, it was around 16, 14%. If that revenue plateaus, Safaricom actually becomes not a very profitable organization. So splitting M-Pesa and their voice and data will make Safaricom start thinking of, how do we grow this M-Pesa? How do we innovate more on this M-Pesa? Because automatically now they enter into the fintech space with a separate organization and company. They will now start competing with every other fintech in that line and that space. But even after they are splitting, and I call on the honorable members, even after splitting voice and data and M-Pesa, M-Pesa will still become a monopoly, because they'll be controlling 90-something% of the market as M-Pesa alone. And every other fintech is relying on the M-Pesa platform for payments and everything. So again, further regulation needs to be done on that, because you might have split them but still not achieved the purpose, especially on the side of M-Pesa. On voice and data, quality is an issue. So if Safaricom voice and data stand by itself, they have to start thinking now of quality and issue. But someone will say, I can have M-Pesa for my M-Pesa transactions, but for voice and data, I'm going to use Telcom or Airtel because it is better. Right now, Safaricom hides on voice and data just because people are stuck with M-Pesa. But if now they are separate and you are able to run the two separately, it will actually increase innovation. And I'll give you an example. We all know Axiom Mobile, Chevron, BP. That came from the federal state breaking Standard Oil in 1929, because they had a monopoly. And they were told you have to split, and they had to split into 34 companies. And out of those 34 companies, we now have Chevron Mobile, we have now Chevron, we have Mobile, we have BP, which end up become BP Shell. Look at a Bell Telecommunications, which was split up again. Now we ended up with AT&T, which is one of the biggest telecommunications companies, Veron, and it helped them. And there are some that are not even state pushed, and I think Safaricom should have been leading this by itself. Look at eBay. eBay are splitting, PayPal by itself, eBay by itself. Look at HP, Hewlett Package, splitting to the ones Hewlett Enterprises that are going to be doing big business storages, and HP looking at the retail and whatever. And it is all strategic to make sure that there is innovation, different strategies for all, and at the end of the day, they will actually end up being more profitable. And like what the honorable members have said, more revenue for the government and more jobs created. So it should be looked at it from that perspective. That I think for Safaricom's stage now, that time is ripe for even Safaricom's benefit themselves.
Honorable Sankok, Voke Kevo says, does Honorable Sankok understand what monopoly means? How Safaricom monopoly when we have Airtel, Telcom, etc. offering the same services? What Safaricom is offering, other players are not, so that it becomes a monopoly. The bill is against innovation. That's what he says.
Of course, from the start, because I had, I also did psychology. I had already read their minds, and that is why I said we are not against innovation, but we are against innovative ways of conning Kenyans. Because I've done my calculation in terms of how much you can borrow through Fuliza and how much it is charged. It is exorbitant, and the government is not getting revenue out of it. And we have said, if you ask the guy who have just commented, if you want to send him money, he will say, don't send in this line, because probably he have a Fuliza. That is why we are saying that for a long time it have monopolized the market. And I think my friend have even elaborated that even agents are not allowed to do any other business. They are stifled. They are not allowed to do any other business. And when you kill that kind of competition, you monopolize the market. That is the meaning of monopoly. And Trevor, we are not against innovation. Why don't they want to be regulated? It is for their own benefit if they split, as my good friend have explained. And again, we also need that the huge profits they are making, there is corporate social responsibility. Not once have I approached Safaricom and told them that we have cash transfers, for instance, to elderly persons, older persons, orphans and vulnerable children, and even persons with severe disability. Why don't you just come and assist the government in transferring this money through M-Pesa instead of through banks? We are currently paying 800 million to transfer a total of 29 billion to Kenyans. 800 million will have done something else if Safaricom will have said, okay, since you are transferring this money as social responsibility, we can come and assist the government in transfer. So what we are simply saying is that we need to regulate these telecommunication companies. And we are not only targeting Safaricom. Every telecommunication company, even Airtel, have. And then when I talk about monopoly, what is the percentage of the cut of mobile money transfer that Safaricom have vis-a-vis what Airtel have? We are saying let us open it for competition, and let us have efficiency.
Okay.
Yeah, we regulate.
All right. Elisha, you're the one who's pushing this amendment. What kind of an impact will it have on revenue collection, to the government even?
Trevor said that, number one, I've been repeat from the Honorable Sankok's premise, that the bill is just to provide transparency and ensure that there's more effective regulation, but not to stifle innovation. And I mentioned earlier, imagine, I want that young man to go on an imagination. The exponential growth that the country will have when we create more banks, a Safaricom bank. I mean, Trev, if you go to a doctor, you have a pediatrician, you have a gynecologist, you have a clinician, a physician, for example. You can't have a physician who is a gyno. Everybody is better when they focus on their core business. They deliver much more. But for me, where I sit, this will ensure that the country gets more revenue. Airtel, money, Fuliza, they'll register as separate entities as is posted in Company Act 17 of 2015.
Yeah.
When they register, what do? They pay the government money. The transactions will be more transparent because they'll be regulated now by the central bank. Probably it's time to ask whether the central bank is doing their job, rightfully so, or they're just looking for how to tax Kenyans and pay our debt.
Yeah.
I'm looking at a way where the country can pay debt, we can get money to do development. Counties can get money from treasury without a delay because we have better innovative ways of collecting money that does not stifle development of the country.
Yeah. So are you saying that right now as it stands, then the amount of money they're paying in taxes and revenue is not commensurate to the services they're offering?
Of course it's not. The amount of money they're paying is not commensurate. The amount of money they're getting from Kenyans in terms of, like Honorable Sankok said, if you take a Fuliza, the tax you're taxed, how much do they give the government? If they tax you 40%, if the government was taking 20%, I would not complain. But this is going to individual entity.
Yeah.
They should think about the country. They should think about our future. And it is time for our young men out there to think about innovative ways of growing the economy. There are better ways. I mean, if you go, for example, in the US, the telecom companies, if you go, you don't buy phones like we buy here. You buy a phone with a plan, so that the payment, you don't feel the heavy cost of buying a phone. What happens then? It means if there's a thief using my phone, it will be restricted. It can be found. But this is an open market. Everything and anything is happening without a control.
Yeah.
Because you buy the phone from an agent, from any agent, if your phone gets lost, it takes the police, I think, a maximum of a month to locate your phone, if they're efficient, because it takes a longer time. But if the telecom companies themselves had a plan with you, I mean, you enter a plan and you buy a phone, as you call, you pay, in that way, that phone can't get lost easily.
Yeah.
They'll track it. So, I mean, there are many things that the country needs to do.
Yeah.
But among them, look at better ways to collect revenue for the country to grow.
Yeah.
But more importantly for the youth, the money sitting at CA, instead of giving a bandwidth of 5 megabytes, we could do more, expound it, make it more efficient, make it better, so that somebody can be in game in a high hub center and be able to do data entry for a company that sits in Maryland, Washington.
Okay. But now that this is your agenda, explain to me what you envision. Yeah, before I come to you, Honorable Sankok.
Yeah.
Just explain to me what you envision at the end of it all. So Safaricom is there or Airtel is there? Airtel money is separate. Is this now a bank? Is it separate with all the employees are different now from the ones on the services? What do you envision, practically speaking?
I envision one, that the country will get more revenue.
Yeah.
That the country will be much better in paying our debts because we are debt-ridden. I envisage a situation where we will use the Universal Service Fund to empower youths, create centers, high-up centers for them, and they can do jobs without necessarily coming to the city. Because, I mean, we believe in jobs, office jobs.
Yeah.
The world has changed. You can now work at home, thanks to COVID.
Okay.
That everybody now can believe that you can even do your degree at home. Initially, it was unbelievable. So we can have education centers at home. People can read and do their degrees at home, diplomas at home, online, without necessarily coming to school.
Okay.
If we make those iHub centers more robust, more friendly, and we increase the bandwidth, yes, then finally, I expect that then we'll have a more efficient telecom infrastructure, where when I call you, there's no call drop. Of course, unless there's a third-party interference, unless the government wants to listen something, which is internationally acceptable. But we'll have a more, you'll pay for a service and get an efficient service.
Okay.
You'll enjoy having a phone.
Okay.
Yeah.
Honorable Sankok, you wanted to jump in?
Yes, you know, Trevor, you have gone to petrol station, and some of them have eateries, like Java. Do you want to tell me the license for the petrol station is still the same that is operating the Java or the eatery that are around there? What is wrong with us saying, if you are a telecommunication company, if you want to go into lending, if you want to go to the business of a commercial bank, have a separate license for it? What is wrong with us as the legislative arm of government saying that we need to regulate? And you know, when you talk of regulation, we have seen people suffering, including ourselves. Not because of Lisa, of course, but I remember, you know, I don't normally take loans. The last time I took a loan was high education loan board. But I have been in CRB for almost, I don't know how long. When I went to my bank and inquired about certain statements, I was told I was in CRB. Somebody had used my phone or my ID to borrow money. I can't even remember the name of the company that the money was borrowed from. But I was told the ID was used and probably the phone was used to borrow money. We have had goons from committee, maximum prison, siphoning money from Kenyans, conning Kenyans through the same mobile telecommunication. What is wrong with us saying we need to regulate this mobile telecommunication so that if I'm conned, my hard-earned cash through a telecommunication company, then we can ascertain who is on the wrong. Is it Safaricom? Is it Airtel? Or is it myself? So that if it is then the telecommunication company, then it will bear the burden.
Okay.
What is wrong? Because all of any conning, any hacking of even our Facebook through telecommunications, any hacking of our banks have been done through phones, and the burden have been bared by Kenyans. It have been on the shoulders of ordinary Kenyans.
Okay.
All those who have lost money through mobile money conmanship, they have never had where they can run to. You know, you go to the police, you record a statement, you are told let us track these people. There is no tracking. Okay. So what we are just simply saying, let us regulate so that also we protect Kenyans. Okay. As much as we want to protect innovators, as much as we want to protect telecommunication companies, we also need to protect Kenyans.
Okay.
And it is not the issue of you doing your business without, why do you want to do your business without regulation?
Okay.
Why?
Is
there something you are hiding?
Yeah. Very briefly on this as we wind up.
So I don't think it's killing innovation has been stated on that tweet. I think it will actually open up Safaricom for better innovation. I think what needs to be the public needs to understand with this bill, the bill is not trying to regulate pricing. Neither is it trying to regulate costs or anything, but then that would be detrimental. That's now price setting and price control. Yeah. The bill is trying to open up for more competition. So it's not punishing Safaricom for success. It's saying, yes, you've been successful, but now your success is not trickling down to quality service to the users of this. Yeah. And as Safaricom, I would look at it as an opportunity, because when you have M-Pesa, and as you asked, M-Pesa will have to have its own staff, its own CEO, own registration, own tax pin, and all that. The CEO for M-Pesa now can come up with a strategy of growing M-Pesa, increasing the revenues. When the revenues plateau, how do I increase the revenues? The guy who remains as the CEO for Safaricom, where their voice revenue has actually been coming down, let's now think of innovative ways. How do I get more people making phone calls? How do I get more people using data? Safaricom may even create another third company on TV, digital TV, which they have been trying to do. But if it's a sub-department somewhere, trust me, innovation and priority is always pressed down on the bigger boys. But when you stand alone as a separate digital Safaricom digital services organization and you want to do streaming of videos and all as a separate entity, get the right person who has skills in that, right staff to do that, you'll end up getting more value from Safaricom, the holding company, at the end of the day. So I don't see it as a negative way. I see it as a positive way, and especially if Safaricom can view it in that way, that I think it was actually time for us to do this by ourselves without waiting for us to be forced through legislation.
All right. Honorable Elisha, I'll give you the final say on this. So where do we go? It comes to the floor of Parliament tomorrow, then what next?
Trevor, I'm optimistic that members will have their day tomorrow, and after which it will go to the committee of the whole House. After the committee of the whole House, then the bill gets back and voted and goes to the President for assent. This bill is not about election. This bill is about Wanjiku, Kamau, Onyango, Sankok, and Aweno, to leverage their position in society. They are there outside there complaining. There's nobody to talk about what ails the service. I'm here to ensure that we can go to the annals of history as having created a momentum for innovation for the country. I'm optimistic that from today, I'm thankful to you, Trevor, that the papers, Nation, Standard, and Star will write about this bill, because it would appear that there are games being played in the market. I hope they are not part of the game.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much for making time. Honorable Elisha Odhiambo Game, Member of Parliament, Honorable David Sankok, nominated MP, and Reginald Kazutu, Capital Economist. Thank you so much for making time and speaking to us about this bill. We'll follow this up again tomorrow when it comes to the floor of the House and see what happens from there. We're taking a quick break here. When we come back, Willis Raburu is here, the working out, and health tips as well. See you in a bit.